The British Empire were a colonial power. At its height, it was the largest empire in history, but they always thought they were even bigger. By 1930, the British Empire held sway over 412 million people, which were 23% of the world's population at the time. By 1920, it covered 35,500 square kilometers, which was 24% of the Earth's total land area. As a result of the empire's greatness, its political, legal, and cultural legacy is widespread. But let us start at the beginning. In 1497, the British Empire did not exist. Neither did Britain. England was the largest and the most powerful country at this time. England makes careful first steps towards establishing a presence beyond the ocean, in the same decade as Spain and Portugal. In 1497, Henry VII sent John Cabot on an expedition across the Atlantic to look for a trade route to China. The explorer probably reaches Newfoundland, but his journey provides no lasting result. This Newfoundland was the North America, so that made him the first European to set foot there, at least since the Vikings 500 years earlier. During the 16th century, when English seamen are honing their skills, Drake and his colleagues find it more profitable to raid the Spanish Main as privateers than to go to the expense of transporting colonists across the Atlantic. The exception is Walter Raleigh, who sponsors 2 attempts to settle a colony on Roanoke Islands, off of the coast of what is now North Carolina. Both are disastrous. The colonists left there in 1585 are soon desperate to return and are brought back to England by Drake in 1586. Another group of settlers is brought to the island in 1587, a year which sees the first child born in America to English parents. She is called Virginia Dare. But when an English ship next visits the island in 1590, no trace remains of any member of this pioneering community. The next attempt to establish English colonies in America comes in 1606 with the founding of 2 companies for the purpose. Meanwhile, England is also considering a more active role in European adventures to the east. At the very end of the century, an initiative is taken which will lead through the activities of the East India Company to the longest of Britain's colonial enterprises. On the last day of the year 600, Elizabeth I granted charter to a company of merchants trading into the East Indies. Early voyages proved successful. By 1614, the East India Company owns 24 ships. By competition with the Dutch in the Spice Islands leads to violence, culmination in a massacre of English merchants at Amboina by the Dutch rebels in 1623. This disaster causes the company to concentrate on its interests in India. In 1613, a factory has been formally established on the west coast at Surat. The first English vessel with a cargo of these Indian goods sails from Surat in 1615. Surat remains the English headquarters on the west coast until it is gradually replaced between 1672 and 1687 by Bombay. Meanwhile, the English are establishing secure footholds on the east coast. Fort St. George is begun at Madras in 1640 and is completed in 1644. Calcutta is eventually selected in 1690 as the best site for a trading station in the Ganges Delta. It is fortified as Fort William in 1696. By the end of the 17th century, the 3 English presidents of Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta are securely established.